Today on Locked On Red Wings, TSN posted an article on identifying breakout rebound candidates for the 2022-23 NHL season. 3 Red Wings made the list. Who are they? And also, Steve Yzerman is not just an NHL guru, but he's an MLB guru too.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I am a podcast producer for WWJ News Radio 950, while Scotty is host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News. And Scotty, it is coughing fit season. I'm at that point in my cold recovery that I may be muting my mic at times to go on 30-second coughing fits. So at that time, you will be called upon to just say words.
It's a good thing I have a show where I talk to myself for 30 minutes straight.
But yeah, today is going to be a bit of a patchwork episode. Not much news came out on the Red Wings front today, but we got some EA ratings, which are always fun. There's no, honestly, analysis there, but it's fun to talk about. The Detroit Tigers obviously introduced their new president of baseball operations, and Chris Illitch had something to say about Steve Yzerman on that front. And then also the TSN article that I teased in the cold open. And then if we got time, I do want to respond to some YouTube comments, but that's a lot of patchwork stuff to get to. So we're going to talk about that stuff first. Then at the end, if I can respond to a couple YouTube comments, that'd be great. But Scotty, let's lead off with this TSN article, because I think that's the most interesting thing that we have on today's docket. Travis Yost wrote an article for tsn.ca. Wow. I just butchered the first word in the article title.
Sure.
Thank you. Identifying breakout rebound candidates for the 2022-23 NHL season. And there were 3 Red Wings on this list of 18. Now, this is a really interesting article, and it's a really interesting list based for the reasons why they point out, but also take it with a grain of salt as well, because they're pulling statistics and advanced metrics from 3 or 4 different websites to compile this list. It's an interesting list, and I like the list personally because it lists 3 Red Wings as guys who are going to rebound or break out this season, and I like that a lot. But one red flag to see immediately is the fact that they've listed Dustin Brown on there, and it'd be very hard for him to have a rebound season considering the fact that Dustin Brown has retired. So, maybe a little bit of a grain of salt, but it's still a really interesting article. They list Filip Zadina, obviously, as a guy who could break out this season. Dominik Kubalik as a guy who could rebound, and Andrew Copp as a guy who could have a breakout season, which is funny because a lot of people consider his last season his breakout season. But the way they did this is they compiled data, and they have 3 categories. They have their generated shots at a first line rate per 60 minutes, generated expected shots at a first line rate per 60 minutes, and ended the year with bottom 6 real goals scored. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and put this chart up here. And I just want to, Scotty, get your kind of like first glance opinion on what you think. And like, if you even believe that these players are capable of these rebound or breakout seasons.
Yeah, I mean, wow. Okay, so, I mean, first and foremost, I really like the Dominik Kubalik shout out there. I think that that's really cool. I think, he's someone that we've talked about a lot in the offseason as a guy that we really like. I mean, I kept talking about, I think he's one of my favorite acquisitions of the entire offseason. I really like that one a lot, and just like the situations that the Red Wings are going to use him in. You know what I mean? I think it's going to be really friendly to his style of play, and get some special teams looks, I think, power play looks as well. He's going to – we talked about, how much of a volume shooter he is and all of that. Like we've covered all this when talking about him this offseason. So that's one that I'd like to see on there just because it kind of fits, not our narrative per se, but like it fits right in line of what we've been, saying since bringing him on. Zadina is just
you expect him on there.
Like, sure, please. You know what I mean? Like, please do. It's just, he's always he's always on this list. It's always, this is Zadina's breakout year. It always is. So we hope so. That would be definitely, what is he the youngest player on this list? Zadina? Oh no, we got McMichael. I didn't see Ann Hoglander down there. Okay, so it's just like he's always gonna be on here, and I think that's kind of funny. Going away from Red Wings, I mean, like Copp, like again, like I don't know, I don't need a huge leap forward. I think that'd be great. I'd obviously welcome it, but I'm very cool with the player Andrew Copp was last year, and if that's what we get out of him, I'll be pretty happy. Outside of the Red Wings players, I really like Brendan Gallagher on here.
Yeah, I like Puljujärvi as well.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I'm just realizing?
What?
Probably gonna have to edit this video to blur out that video so we don't get copyright struck.
Oh, really?
Yeah, can you see that?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah. So if you're watching, guys, enjoy that blurred out video of hockey highlights that they're playing on auto. I didn't even think about that.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I don't want to lose out on that precious money now, do I? True. But yeah, I mean, Filip Zadina, we expect that to see on here. And when I first read the article, I was like, how the heck do you what is generated shots at a first line rate? Like what generated goals at a first line rate? I think what it means is that they took enough shots. They took shots equal to what a first liner would take, or they had expected goals equal to what a first liner would make. And then obviously their actual goals were equal to what a bottom six forward would make, is what I would imagine that is what it comes down to. And obviously you see Filip Zadina's near the top of this list, which makes perfect sense because he took a lot of shots last year. They weren't always like the highest IQ shots, but he took a lot of shots and his expected goals is high, but his actual goals, as we all know, is very low. And again, I mean, Tony Ferrari of the Hockey News just posted an article. There's still a lot left to Filip Zadina to like be patient with. There really is. That's the other two guys that I'm more interested in that we haven't talked to death, like Filip Zadina and Andrew Copp and Dominik Kubalik. Because the reason why Steve Yzerman took a flyer on Dominik Kubalik is because he believed that there's still that magic left in him. Obviously, he had a 30-goal season in his rookie year, was a Calder Cup finalist in that season, and then has decreased in production ever since on a Blackhawks team that has been getting worse and worse, although they still had DeBrincat, Taves, and Kane on that team. So their offense was still pretty good. So they're hoping that, Dominik Kubalik can bounce back, and the stats here show that it's possible that he can rebound, and he's a good shooter. He's a very good shooter. But Andrew Copp is the one, because you're not getting a rebound season out of Andrew Copp, because he just had the best year of his career. So they're expecting him to have a breakout year using this model, which is kind of a shock to me, because I didn't think he was going to get much better than what he showed this past season. I thought a 50-point scorer would be like the peak out of Andrew Copp, because he's a little bit more of a defensive-minded forward to begin with. He plays a good two-way game. So for this model to project him to have a breakout season was surprising, but very good surprise, very happy surprise.
Yeah, like I said, I don't like if that happens, great. Obviously, I want all of these players to be as best as they possibly can, but I'm not like looking for that. I like the Andrew Copp that played in New York last year, and if that's who we get, then I'm pretty pumped about it. I don't need him to take that big step forward. I'm okay with the player we signed, but if that happens, obviously that's great.
No, I'm completely with Andrew Copp. As long as he was the guy he was last year, I'll be happy. I don't even have a breakout year. I mean, he's 28. How much more breakout could he have at this point? So I liked it a lot. I thought the article was really interesting. It's on tsn.ca for you guys if you want to read it. They have a couple other graphics on here, goals added, expected goal rates, and career shooting percentages like that. They just break it down a little further. It's a good article.
Non-blurred out version.
A non-blurred out where you can watch the highlights play on autoplay.
The ads.
So, I mean, yeah, it was a nice article. They're not too deep. Don't look too deep into it, guys, especially this time of year. But it was fun. So when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the other patchwork stuff we got in this episode, and talk about Yzerman and the Tigers. Talk about EA Sports and their Moritz Seider rating, and maybe respond to a couple of your guys' comments. But before we get to that, I do got to talk to you guys today about BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for all your pro and college football betting needs and sports info this season. I had to wait for it to load, Scotty. Find all of the latest football league developments, game matchups, and news, and podcasts, including this year's opening week's games. BetOnline is also your continued source for all your sport wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, you want to do EA or you want to talk about Yzerman? EA or YZ? Where do you want to go?
That was ridiculous. Let's go with EA first. We'll see what the thoughts are on that. So Seider was an 87.
Yeah, 87 overall,
which makes him the 10th best defenseman in
right defenseman.
Got it. 10th best right defenseman in the NHL in the video game in Chell. So I think I guessed 88. I think that was my guest on yesterday's show
said
being 88 overall.
I said I'd be happy if it was at least Zegras, which was 86.
Right. And I think I said I expected him to be better than Zegras, and he was. So that's really all that matters to me, is that he's higher than Trevor Zegras. That's like all I really cared about, and he was. So I still think, I still think 88 was the right call. I still think I was more correct, but if we want to, as long as he's ahead of Zegras, I'll live, which he is. So
I mean, and also we talk about taking things with a grain of salt. You just never take EA Sports ratings on anything seriously.
No.
Because if you look at the other defensemen on that list,
we're gonna log a lot of hours in that game. I don't know.
they had Washington's Carlson is like the 4th or 5th best right defenseman, which.
Yeah.
Production wise, here's the thing: is EA Sports games and NHL fans in general really value offensive production. So defensive minded players get often overlooked in their rating system. Carlson puts up a lot of numbers. He's an offensive style defenseman, even though his defense sucks. So of course he's the 4th or 5th best rated defenseman on the right side of the game, when in reality he's not in the real world. So that's why you got to take these things with a grain of salt. But that wouldn't fit my narrative. So we're still huffing that copium.
Now you're getting
that.
Now you're getting it.
That Seider was number 10 on that list. It's fun. It's cool to see because it's been a long time since any Red Wing's been rated as highly as that. I'm curious what Larkin's going to be rated.
I feel like that answers the question we had on yesterday's show about who's going to be the highest rated Red Wing, because I
can
don't
see Larkin being higher than that.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way Larkin isn't, at least in 88. So,
88 or 89, maybe 90.
Yeah, I think 89 or 90. I think that's probably, I think he'll be around there. So definitely answers that question. But I mean, the young duo of Raymond and Seider, 84 and 87 is pretty fun.
Yeah. And just the fact that it's one more than Trevor Zegras was a nice
one more than Zegras, baby.
Feather in my cap. I am so petty about this, and I don't know why, because I love Trevor Zegras. Like, I think he's a phenomenal player, and I get why he's on the cover, because he's a super flashy player. Like, he's going to be better, and I'll admit it. Like, he's because he's a forward and he's a super flashy forward, he's going to be better marketing wise than Moritz Seider, who's a defenseman. Although he personality wise, Seider's hilarious.
Yeah,
but I get it. So it's just like that rivalry is brewing.
Yeah. Quick side note: this is ridiculous. We started this recording, it was daytime, and now 14 minutes in, there's a giant storm coming. And so I didn't put on like my studio lights because I was like, oh, it's daytime. I can just have my little small light and be fine.
It's 5 in the evening, guys.
Giant thunderstorm decided to roll through, and now it's pitch black. I look like I'm recording this in a cave.
It's fine. Whatever.
This is ridiculous. Anyway.
It's funny. It's 5 in the afternoon, guys. It's not even.
You can't even see. Yeah, it's literally 5 p.m. What are we doing here? Unreal.
All right, Yzerman.
Yeah.
So today the Tigers introduced Scott Harris. I get that right? Scott Harris. He was the general manager of the San Francisco Giants. Now he's the president of baseball operations for the Detroit Tigers, which I'm learning today is more important than general manager. I didn't. Baseball, man.
So the reason I explained this for like really quickly on Locked On Tigers as well, baseball just started creating a bunch of positions that had like hierarchies in order to do what what the Tigers literally just did and like poach really smart front office people from other organizations. Like, oh, you're the GM of this team? Well, you could be the president of baseball ops for this team. If you come through, we'll give you a little bit of a pay raise and a promotion. And like, so now the GM, not for all teams, there are some teams where the GM is still the man in charge and they don't have a president of baseball ops or like that person just like isn't the one driving the ship. But there's a lot of teams that now have the president of baseball ops is like the dude calling all the shots, and then the GM is more of like a right-hand man kind of situation. So that's what we're about to do. We're going to have Scott Harris is running the show. Yes.
So his introductory press conference was today, and during the questioning, Chris Illitch, the owner, was asked about, how the process of hiring Scott Harris went. And along the way, obviously said AJ Hinch, played a big role, which was really reassuring to me and reassuring that he wants to stay if he was a big proponent in hiring this guy or saying, well, yeah, let's get this guy. But also he said, I even got input from Steve Yzerman, which was really, I mean, everyone was tweeting that because that's such a weird thing. Like, your general manager of your hockey team, you went to for input on the president of baseball ops for your baseball team. And it probably was something as little as like, hey, Steve, if you're hiring a general manager or a president, like, what would you look for? Because some of that stuff does translate. You want somebody who's like head is towards the future, not caught in the past type stuff. So it could have been like quick conversation, 5-10 minutes, or it could have been more like, I wouldn't hire anyone who shows off these red flags. So I don't think that Yzerman has like a huge role in it, but it's just the fact, Scotty, that Steve Yzerman, the general manager of one of the most well-respected general managers in hockey in the National Hockey League, was approached about who to hire for Major League Baseball for the Detroit Tigers, just like really goes to show how much people respect his mind, especially Chris Illitch, like how much the owner of both teams respects Steve Yzerman's mind to go to somebody who's in a leadership role in a completely different sport for your Tigers team. Like that just speaks so much about Yzerman.
It's awesome. It's awesome. I love it so much. And yes, it absolutely does speak volumes to Stevie Y. And like you said, I don't think, it's not like Yzerman picked the dude or anything. Like, it's not like he had the biggest role in the world. I'm sure Hinch and a lot of the people on the baseball side of things had much bigger roles, but just the fact that it was enough of a role for him to mention it and like want to mention it, where like his people were like prepping him for this interview and they're like, yeah, mention that Yzerman helped. And he's like, oh yeah, people will love that. And we do, like, it worked. And like, just
we're talking about it.
Right. Like the fact that the weight that Steve Yzerman's name holds is just so crazy in this city, and it's all deserved. That's not a slight at all. It's very much deserved that it holds that much weight. But I don't know. It was just really funny to me. Like, they were. There's no reason for Steve Yzerman's name to be brought up today, and yet that's like the first thing he said. It was literally like, it was like, okay, I want this to really go well, and everybody loves Steve, so I'm just going to say it as quick as possible. And that's pretty much what he did. He said it almost immediately. It was really funny.
Yeah, I love that, man. Oh, good GM. And then like, and we're locked on Red Wings, so we won't hone on it for too long, stay on the topic for too long. But just like, obviously the Tigers got a lot of work to do. But the fact that he's like, we're going to be aggressive, we're not going to be afraid to take risks. Like, I believe every single year is an opportunity to make the team a contender. I'm like, I was a little, he didn't want to say they were going to go into a rebuild, which is a little different than what Yzerman said when he took over. He's like, yeah, this is a rebuild. But I think that he also realizes that the people of Detroit are tired of rebuilds. Like, we just are ready for this team to be competitive. So it's nice that now there's 4 general managers in the city of Detroit who immediately, as soon as they spoke to the media, you were like, that guy's got a good vibe to him. No red flags. You knew what Yzerman was. You knew what Brad Holmes was. You knew what Troy Weaver was. Now you think you know what Scott Harris is. Just guys who are going to come in and get stuff done. Like, that's just such a reassuring feeling to have.
Yeah, big time. Sorry, I was like, I'm playing with the fact that I could, if I go back far enough, it looks like I'm in the shadows and you like can't see me. And I like appear out of the shadows, and I'm like, you are correct, Brian. But no, it's really like the I think that this is the first time and this might last 2 weeks, right? It might last 48 hours, but this is the first time in my entire life that I feel confident and actually like the direction I think of all 4 general managers in this city at the same time. And I don't think I've ever been able to say that. And yeah, again, it might last, 6 hours from now before this episode even goes up. One of them might do something stupid and I might change my mind on it. But like for now, that this is still the first, even if it's only a second long feeling, it's the first time I've ever felt that. And yeah, modeling what you do off of what Steve Yzerman does is always a good idea. And I think Cody Stavenhagen of The Athletic, one of the beat writers for the Detroit Tigers, said that that Scott Harris had met Yzerman before and like had spoken to him as well. I think I have a quote here.
I love Steve Yzerman, man.
Quote. It's coming. Okay.
Like I know we shouldn't be too fanboy because like
no,
our
but
job
so he
is to be
said
objective.
Scott Harris said he talked with Steve Yzerman, quote unquote, quite a bit. Also met him in Wrigley a few years ago. Said, quote, I imagine I'll lean on him quite a bit for some advice. He certainly had a wonderful career on the ice and in the front office, and I know I can learn a lot from him.
What?
That is about the general manager. That's from Cody Stavenhagen at The Athletic. That is from the general manager. He's talking about the general manager of a different sport. And he's like, yeah, I'll probably learn a lot from him.
And like that could be just, and like devil's advocate, that could just be like general PR, like say good thing about other guy in Detroit.
But like, who cares?
But that just sounds nice, man.
Yeah,
I like
cool.
that.
It's cool. It could be a PR thing. Not every single city in the country does it. It's still cool. I don't care.
That's awesome. All right. When we return, segment 3, we're going to get to your YouTube comments and we're going to respond to some of them. I'm going to point them out and I'm going to laugh at them. Just kidding.
Whoa.
No, I wouldn't do that. I love you guys. Some of you more than others, but when we come back. All right, we're back. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. If you have YouTube Premium, there was no break there. It was just me saying we're going to be back, and now we're back. This is this kind of episode, man. This is what happens when there's no big news on the Red Wings front, man. We just have fun with it. We don't have fun otherwise. Don't leave me in the lurch, man. Say something.
Back to the shadows.
No, don't go back to the shadows.
This is crazy how dark this is. It's 5:30.
The worst thing in the
pitch black.
The worst thing is when I make really dumb jokes and then you just don't say anything. You let me land flat on my face every single time.
Get pranked, dude.
Okay, so this is from yesterday's episode on what will Dylan Larkin's contract be. This is from Hoyt still. I'm not seeing great contract numbers for Larkin. The Wings will finally have some players that will give everyone a better idea of whether Larkin is really the best player. And I really don't see him being the obvious best player. Yzerman became a great GM because he understands the salary cap. He watched the Wings go deep into the tank after a bunch of bad contracts from Ken Holland. Holland had no problem when Pizza Man, Chris Illitch, or Mike Ilitch, rather, let him spend the big money pre-salary cap, but Wings slowly sank to the bottom. Okay, this is starting to drag on. What's the point here? I sure don't see Larkin getting long-term big money. There are very few cases where big long-term contracts helped any team.
I think there's a lot to dissect there, but I think within the
he doesn't see Larkin getting a big contract.
And this is a pretty subjective conversation, which like I love. Like I love these like subjective. Everybody has their own opinion on how to build a team. That's why I love sports so much, and I think there is infinite different ways to build a contender. So I very much am like open and welcome to this conversation. But I would say this: I think there is a huge difference in what your definition of huge contract is, because like if Larkin got 8 over 8,
that's not huge,
right? Like that's not
reasonable,
right? Like that would be incredible value, but it would be really long and it would be in the top quarter,
considering
of the league in salary a year.
Nathan McKinnon just became the highest paid player as of the day we're recording this on Thursday at 12.6 a year. Right. And then you got guys like Tim Stützle, who's got 1.5 years of experience, just got paid 8x8. I think 8x8 for Larkin would be a steal.
Right. No. So that's what I'm saying, though.
No, I agree with you.
It depends on your definition of big, but also I think that now there is that conversation is so different depending on the salary cap in the sport, or if there even is a salary cap in the sport you're talking about. There's a lot of, like in baseball, the owner's giving you a budget. And it's like, and it's not public information. It's like, this is how much you're allowed to spend this offseason. Have fun and figure it out. And it's just like, you know what I mean? Yes.
I also have a statement too. I don't want to crap all over the comment. I appreciate the feedback and I appreciate your opinion. That's your opinion. You're entitled to it. But the part where he said, like, there's very few examples of long-term contracts working out. Look at every team that's won a championship the last 5 years. They have their big star on their team is under a big contract.
So that's kind of where I was headed, is like, there's a big
Tampa has like 7 of them.
Right. There's a big difference between the Texas Rangers in the mid 2000s when they gave A-Rod the biggest contract in the history of sports and then didn't have any money to sign anyone else because the owner wouldn't give any more, versus a salary cap where everybody has the same amount of money to spend. Yeah. And if you use it wisely and if that person is worth whatever, a 10 million, 8 million, 12 million % chunk of what every team is getting every year because they're one of the best players, then I think that makes them objectively worth it. And that was the point I was getting to, is if you look at the best teams from the last few years, there is certainly examples. Like, don't get me wrong, there are certainly examples of, teams that have pieced together and made pretty competitive teams without having like that big, 9, 10, 11 million a year player. But a lot of the teams that end up hoisting Stanley Cup is, they usually run at or even significantly over the cap, as we saw with the Lightning the last few years.
Yeah. Then we have another one from Brent Anderson. His name is pronounced Tutayev. Appreciate it, buddy. He was responding to me struggling on how to pronounce that name. Thank you, Brent. Appreciate it, buddy.
Hey, I need help.
Brent's a regular down there in the comment section. I appreciate him.
Yeah.
Let's see. There's a lot to sift through here. I want to get you guys the best one. This one comes from another, into the shadows he goes. This one comes from another common YouTube commenter of ours, from Nicholas, Mr. Stay Frosty. Told you guys, Cross Hannes is a sleeper. That kid is amazing and also on an entry-level contract. He will probably start with Grand Rapids, but don't be surprised if he makes the team too, because of he has that capability. As always, great show, guys. And Brian, hope you feel better. Thanks, buddy. I do feel better. Still getting there, though. You look like a drowned rat. Hold on. No, I take that thank you back. He just said I looked like a drowned rat. I take that back. Nick blocked.
Stay frosty.
Yeah, and then he says stay frosty. But no, Cross Hannes, and this is something, it's true. He has mentioned in the comments multiple times for us to talk about Cross Hannes, and the reason I was hesitant, Nick, to talk about him is because I hadn't seen a lot of Hannes play. And because we don't get inundated on Hannes highlights and stuff like that like we do with the guys from the SHL. So I had a lot more experience and exposure to those guys. But after the prospects tournament, man, you were right. Cross Hannes has looked phenomenal. Absolutely killer.
He looked great.
And I think you're right. I think he'll be great in Grand Rapids. And if he plays great in Grand Rapids, he might get a shot near the end of the season, depending on where the team's at. So, I mean, spot on. I can't agree more with Nick.
Yeah. No, I mean, clearly was like the biggest, like, circled his name after the prospect tournament was certainly him. He looked fantastic.
I do have one that I definitely wanted to. Here we go. I like this one a lot. You'll find out. This one comes from Vicky M. And this is on our Jersey ad episode. It says, Brian Fisher, I 1,000,000% agree with you about ads on sweaters and helmets. It's sacrilegious. I wanted to say that one because it agrees with me that it's the worst thing ever. And you're just like, whatever.
Okay. I didn't mean to come off as whatever. But yeah, I mean, I knew, I tried to tell you on the episode, like I knew that more people were, significantly more people were going to side with you than with me. But yeah, I stand by the fact that, in a few months, no one's going to be as passionate about it. They're not on the ones you buy. Like,
But now I don't know if this is the case with NBA jerseys everywhere, but if you were to go to LCA and you were to buy a Pistons jersey at LCA, they have the patches on them for Flagstar, UWM, whatever it was that year. So I don't know if that's outside of that. Might just be an LCA thing. But,
I mean, I've owned Pistons jerseys that I have bought since they have gotten the ad on them that don't have them on them. So
and you did
I
you
know
buy
that
them at
it's
LCA or no?
no, I don't think I've ever
Okay, so
bought a
it's just an
jersey at
LCA
LCA.
thing then. But if you buy that might mean that you buy a jersey at LCA. No, they wouldn't do, because I know the process in which they get those jerseys made. They'd have to get. Oh, they could. Because what they do. Fun little story for you guys. The NBA jerseys, the Pistons jerseys, are made in house at Little Caesars Arena, but because it's heat pressed, they're cheaper jerseys, and our statistics show that people are more willing to buy those jerseys because it's a lower price mark for Pistons jerseys. But with hockey jerseys, people want the stitched, embroidered ones more than they want the heat pressed ones. So we shell out more money, and we send those ones out to a place out. Well, I won't dox them, but we send it out to a company that hand stitches the letters and the names on the jerseys that you buy at LCA, which is why they look so high quality when you buy them.
That's
because
cool.
we send them to a place to do them. If we get those patches, they could easily just send those patches to them as well if we get a jersey ad, because they do everything else for us as well. They won't be heat pressed, so I guess that's nice. But yeah, it definitely is a possibility. But that's why if you ever order a custom jersey from us, or not from us, I don't work there anymore, but from LCA, it takes a couple weeks to get it done because we send the blank out first, have them stitch it, and then send it back. Whereas with the Pistons, it's a quicker turnaround because they just do it downstairs. So it's
there you go. Peek behind the curtain. Fun fact Friday or Wednesday.
Fun fact, yeah. Let's see. Do we have time? We're already past the mark, but I want to get one more in here because we've only done two. Oh, here we go. This is a good one on the Ben Sherratt signing. A little bit of a pushback on us. Hot take. This one was from Corey Schaefer. Hot take. I like the Ben Sherratt signing. He provides what we need on defense, and by the end of the contract, the cap hit for it won't be as high a percentage. That is true. Putting him in the bottom pair at that point probably will be a pretty easy thing to do given the prospects coming up. Let's not forget our defense is 3 or 4 years. Our defense in 3 or 4 years could have 2 or 3 guys on ELCs, which makes it way easier to absorb the contract given to Sherratt. That's a reasonable point and also a perspective I don't think I've considered.
No, it's all fair, and I think we have done a decent job of tiptoeing around, like covering our bases and being like, hey, this is not like a guaranteed terrible move. Like this is something that play style wise and the concept of someone who plays like that being paired with Seider at the top like right away is something that is actually pretty appealing. It's the execution of said concept that I think most people are worried about, just given how he's looked in the last couple of years. So, I mean, the contract and how everything lines up with that roster construction wise is certainly a good perspective on that too. That kind of helps his cause.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the fact that we always have to keep that in the back of our mind that the salary cap is going to go up. So as the salary cap goes up, any contract that's currently signed is going to become better value over time.
Yeah.
So 4.625, I think is what he's making a year, might not look so bad in 2 or 3 years, especially if he plays decent. So that's a solid point. And that's a fair point. But I'm going to, as much as I'm iffy on it, I will hold out judgment until, it happens. Let's do one last one before we sign off.
We've had 3 one last ones. This is crazy.
Well, it's just crazy
how... do it. I'm pro. I'm pro doing it. I'm just saying.
So this one comes from Scott Randall. This is on our should the Red Wings sign Lucas Raymond and Moritz Seider long term. He says, I would be a tad...
Great name.
Scott Randall? Oh, Scott. I would be a tad more hesitant with signing Raymond long term, is what he's implying, until I see consistency in back-to-back years.
Scott's think alike.
With equal or improved scoring as with forwards. You lose that, you're out. But with Mo, the way he plays at his end, I wouldn't care if he never scored another goal because he is that solid defensively and will only improve. To boil all that down, playing style is a hell of a lot easier to keep going than scoring. We got guys that can score, but if we lose Mo, ...
You were very dramatic at the end of that one. Yeah, I think I kind of agreed with that sentiment on that episode. I think I said, like, I'm down to give Mo right away, and that I would be fine with giving Raymond long term, but I think I would be more hesitant on him until maybe this year. I feel like I said that, but I also can't remember what I had for breakfast this morning, so like maybe not. But I think no. I think that I agree with that. I think you wait to lock up Raymond long term at the earliest after this upcoming season, whereas Mo, they could do it today, and I would be pumped no matter what.
I agree with you. I think that's fair. Seider was so good last year, and Scott, the YouTube commenter, was right. His play style is going to age well.
Scott's are always right. That's what you have to
learn. Okay, sure.
Who's the new? What's the name of the Tigers' new president of baseball ops?
Harris.
It's his last name.
Yeah,
his
Harris.
First name.
I couldn't be bothered to remember.
Oh yeah, for sure. We run this.
But yes, long story short, I agree. I want to see a little bit more out of Raymond before I'm willing to give him that big contract. Seider, give him the money whenever you feel fit. Fine with me.
Whenever Steve wants to.
That'll do it, though. Thanks for all your comments all the time, guys. I'm sorry we don't get to them more often, but we'll try and get to them.
We might have some time leading up to preseason to get to more of them.
Yeah, because there's a little bit of a gap. There's a gap between the end of the preseason and the regular season as well. We could do a whole episode dedicated to just getting to your guys' comments because there's a lot. You guys
do a mailbag right before the season starts, regular season maybe.
Yeah, because you guys comment a lot nowadays. There's a lot to sift through. A lot of spam bots to block on YouTube, and then just ridiculous. Have a new one every single day. It's great.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And that'll do it. Any final thoughts, my friend?
We will.
Be back with a new episode on Thursday. Same time, same place. It's your team every day. What are you going? Oh, you're going in the shadows. There you go.